Divorce for the good-for-nothing who doesn't do housework or cook. I'm demanding alimony of $140,000. Looking down at me, bedridden, Bob suddenly declared this. Just when I thought he had come home suddenly, divorce? Good-for-nothing who doesn't do housework or cook, what does that mean? And alimony of $140,000, that's crazy. I got sick because of the stress from Bob. I was boiling with anger at his unbelievable treatment. But I couldn't move as I wanted, unable to even sit up. I didn't want to let things go his way. With that determination, I forced a smile while still lying down. Fine. Bob's face showed shock, not expecting me to accept the divorce so easily. Now there's no turning back. I'll make him regret how he's treated me all this time. My name is Michelle. I work at an IT company called Lilacs and I'm turning 38 this year. My job is mostly remote, and I'm incredibly busy every day but fulfilled. It's hard, but it's rewarding work. My classmates from my student days are often amazed at how much I work. However, I felt good because everyone told me that they all respect me for my dedication at my job. 2 years ago, I gained a family. I married Bob. I met Bob 4 years ago at a pub in the city when I went out to eat with friends. After dinner, while walking to the station, a man called out from behind, "Excuse me." I turned to see who it was. He was a man in a shirt and jacket, looking every bit the capable businessman. "You left this at the pub," he said, handing me a smartphone. I was surprised. It was unmistakably mine. "Thank you so much for bringing it to me." "No problem. I'm glad I caught you. Hey, would you like to grab a drink now?" He asked, relieved to have returned the phone, then surprisingly invited me out. Shocked, I glanced at my friend, who was about to part ways with me at the station. She seemed to say, "Go ahead," with a smile. Sure. I still wanted to talk to someone about a work mishap that day. My friend had a date and couldn't stay long, so it was perfect timing when the man approached. After parting with my friend, I went to a nearby bar with him. That was Bob, now my husband. Bob and I quickly hit it off at the bar, venting about work. We felt comfortable, like old friends, by the time we left the bar and Bob asked for my contact. We started chatting, eventually started dating, leading to marriage 2 years later. It was a whirlwind that things were progressing so quickly. Marrying late, I was just happy to get married, given my career focus. That's what I thought then. "Michelle, get me a beer." Lounging on the sofa, playing with his phone, Bob asked. And I sighed again. How many times now? I've lost count. 2 years into our marriage, Bob's sloppiness was too much. Bob, who works at a well-known bank, always boasts about being an elite banker and insists that people who work are the most important. I didn't know before we got married that Bob thought of himself this way. I knew he took pride in his work, but when he constantly asserts himself, it becomes exhausting. "I've had it. I'm busy, so go buy it yourself." I was at work and couldn't run errands for Bob, so I turned down his request. Then Bob, scratching the back of his head in annoyance, said, "What's so busy about working from home? I've been slaving away at the office all day." "Working from home doesn't always mean it's easy." Even when I retorted, he sarcastically replied, "Yeah, right. You can take a break anytime you want." I got tired of arguing back, silently got up from my chair, and went shopping reluctantly. "Here's your beer." I bought it. Bob didn't thank me for running the errand, nor did he pay me back, just silently took the beer. Then he got absorbed in his smartphone again. Our relationship feels more like master and slave than husband and wife. Why did Bob marry me? No, why did I marry him? Then I sighed again. It goes without saying that Bob never helped with household chores. When I suggested sharing household duties since we both work, he scoffed and said, "Share household chores? Don't joke. You're always home, so it's natural for you to do them." "But I go to the office sometimes. I can't always do all the chores." "Hire a maid for the days you're at the office." Bob stubbornly refused to do any housework. Despite belittling my job as easy and nagging me to do chores faster, he often demanded physical intimacy at night. Yet, there's no sign of us having children. If there's a reason, it's probably me. I've heard it gets harder for women to conceive in their late 30s. I thought it'd be fine to enjoy married life without children, but Bob seemed dissatisfied. "If you can't have a child, you are really useless," he sneered, infuriating me. He's useless at home himself. I doubt if he's really that efficient at work. Capable workers manage their personal life and chores effortlessly. I've been skeptical about Bob's work performance. Speaking of doubts, Bob's been coming home late for months. I don't know about the busy banking seasons, but whenever I mention his late hours, he just says, "My job's tough, unlike yours." After months of late returns, I even started suspecting something fishy. It was only natural to suspect that he might be cheating. One night, Bob came home late as usual and collapsed at the entrance. Approaching him, it was clear he was heavily drunk, unable to stand up. His eyes were closed, nearly losing consciousness. I sighed and approached to untie Bob's tie when he muttered something unexpected. "Wait for me, Amy. Just a little longer," he whispered in a sweet, melting voice. "Amy?" Startled, I wondered who Amy was. Was it sleep talk or confusion from the alcohol? But Bob just started snoring, asleep. Growing suspicious, I installed hidden cameras throughout the house. Next week, I had a business trip, leaving the house for 2 days. I thought it was an ideal opportunity for Bob to bring a lover home. There was no solid proof, but if he did bring someone, it would be evidence of his infidelity. That's why I set up the cameras. A week later, I left nonchalantly for the trip, saying, "I'm off then." Bob waved with a smile. He seemed too happy, which irritated me. Upon returning 2 days later, I immediately checked the camera footage. And as I feared, it showed Bob with a lover, entwined. I couldn't watch it all because it made me sick, but it was undeniable proof of cheating. My fists clenched in rage. I almost crushed the small camera. Unforgivable. He's crossed a line. Did he think he'd get away with this? Confirming Bob's cheating filled me with anger and sadness. His constant berating, saying the food's awful or the floor's dirty, had been piling up stress. I'd been considering divorce, but my suddenly busy work schedule delayed finding the right moment. Eventually, juggling work and house chores wore me down. I collapsed from exhaustion. I took the day off work. Of course, I couldn't handle house duties. Bob knew I was sick, but left silently for work and returned home around 6 p.m. It was earlier than usual. Then he came to the room where I was bedridden. The smell of alcohol was so strong, it made me nauseous. Without a care for my condition, Bob looked down at me. "Divorce for the good-for-nothing who doesn't do housework or cook. I'm demanding alimony of $140,000. Looking down at me, bedridden, he suddenly declared this. Just when I thought he had come home suddenly, divorce? Good-for-nothing who doesn't do housework or cook, what does that mean? And alimony of $140,000, that's crazy. I got sick because of the stress from Bob. I was boiling with anger at his unbelievable treatment. But my body wouldn't move as I wished, and I couldn't even get up. I didn't want to let things go Bob's way. With that determination, I forced a smile while still lying down. "Fine." Bob's face showed shock, not expecting me to accept the divorce so easily. Now there's no turning back. I'll make him regret how he's treated me all this time. A few days later, once my fever subsided and I felt better, I went to see a lawyer for a divorce application. After I finished the meeting with the lawyer, I waited for Bob to return home. "I'm home!" That evening, Bob came home around 10 p.m., reeking of alcohol. And a perfume I had never smelled on him before. I confronted him with the divorce application as he walked in. "I want a divorce," I said in a low voice. Bob snorted and grabbed the application. "Finally, I can be free." I couldn't tell if it was sarcasm or genuine, but he smirked. If he wanted a divorce so badly, he should have found a lawyer who assists divorce by himself. But he probably wanted me to be the one to bring it up. I was fed up with his pettiness. "I'll be filing for alimony, just so you know." I thought it pathetic that he, having cheated, thought he could demand alimony from me. I remained silent, simply watching the divorce proceedings unfold. Eventually, the divorce process was finalized and was free from Bob's tyranny. It felt like an anticlimactic end to our marriage. But I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. I decided to take action to make Bob regret his actions. Over the next few days, I packed up my belongings. I was leaving this house. It is a second-hand condo we bought when we got married 2 years ago. I had no attachment to it, so I chose to leave. "Don't you ever come back," Bob said with a smirk as I packed. He probably planned to live here with his mistress once I left here. The thought made me sick, but the hidden camera footage showed he was quite into her. Ignoring Bob's words, I left with my suitcase. At least I'm free from his verbal abuse. I let out a sigh of relief. I immediately went to a real estate agent and found a rental. It's a bit small, but the rent is reasonable, and it's a well-maintained women-only building. I signed the lease right away. I'll be staying at a hotel for a week until I can move in. Afterward, I finished some banking and checked into the hotel. All the while, I plotted my revenge on Bob. The plan I came up with gave me goosebumps. That's it. This is the only way. Imagining Bob's astonished face made me almost burst into laughter. Just watch. You won't get off easy this time. The next day, I took bold action. I think I did something bold. I felt satisfied after completing my task. Life was peaceful afterward. Being single again, I no longer had to cook or do laundry for Bob, which was a relief. I even regretted not divorcing sooner if something like this happened. I returned to my single life and was able to make progress in my work. A month later, a call came in the middle of the night. Woken up by the ringtone, I wondered who it could be at this hour, and to my surprise, it was Bob. At first, I ignored it, but he kept calling. If I continued to ignore it, my sleep would be disturbed. Reluctantly, I answered. "Hello?" When I answered the phone in a sleepy voice, I could hear cars and trains in the background. He seemed to be outside. The discomfort of being woken up and hearing the noise was evident in my voice as I waited for Bob's response. "Michelle, you finally answered. What's the meaning of this?" Bob's shout was so loud it jolted me awake. I knew what he was about to say. But I pretended to be clueless and asked, "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. I got a call from the bank yesterday. They're suddenly firing me. I'm in Italy on my honeymoon, and I don't understand any of this." So, he was on his honeymoon in Italy. Being Italy, there must be some time difference. That's why he called at this time. His disregard for other situations was so typical of Bob. That sounds serious. Good luck with that, by now. I tried to end the call with a normal response. But Bob shouted, "Hey, wait." Annoyed, I sighed but held off hanging up. I asked why they're firing me. Guess what they said? "You caused us to lose a major client." And when I asked which company, they said Lilacs Corporation. "That's where you work." Bob explained how he got fired, but I had anticipated this. After all, I was the one who orchestrated everything. I closed my eyes in the dim light, taking a deep breath. This was my chance to settle the score with Bob. After inhaling deeply, I said, "Yes, I know. Because I'm the one who withdrew our business from your bank." On the other end of the phone, Bob gasped in disbelief. Then, a woman's flirty voice asked from his side, "Hey, are you done yet?" I continued, unfazed. "You might not have known, but I'm the president of Lilacs Corporation." "President?" "Yes. I am the president." Bob probably thought of me as just another remote worker. But in reality, I rarely work on site because I am the president. I left my first job after 3 years to pursue my dream of starting my own company, and it's been over a decade since. The company grew, and we started receiving substantial loans from banks, including the major bank where Bob worked. After we split, I decided to repay all the loans we had from the bank. The bank's sales representative was taken aback. They would lose the interest they were expecting to receive from us. My decision to pay back everything at once was probably unexpected for them. "Could you reconsider your decision?" the representative asked me in a panic. I said, "I have one condition. Fire Bob." The representative was flustered and brought his manager. It was someone I knew from previous dealings with Lilacs Corp. What's going on? I was asked by the manager I had been close with. I decided to tell him everything. Actually, Bob has been having an affair with the daughter of your bank's president. He ridiculed me, left me without paying for his sin, and now he's planning to remarry her. I couldn't stand it. I had learned about Bob's affair with the president's daughter from the hidden cameras in our house. Their conversations were recorded, too. The sales representative and manager turned pale upon hearing my story and seemed desperate to continue business with my company. Probably, the news reached the president, who must have been furious to learn his daughter was involved with a married man. They promised to fire Bob, so I held off on repaying the loan in full. That's why I still have dealings with the bank Bob used to work at. I knew about his firing before he even called me. What? You're the deceitful one. You dumped all the housework on me, ridiculed me, and cheated. And now you say I'm the bad one? Can't you think logically? And you called yourself an elite employee? That's laughable. I'll definitely be claiming alimony from you because of your insults. To think you believed you'd get alimony after cheating. Also, I've transferred the mortgage of the house to you. I was the one paying for it, after all. I unleashed all the stress he had caused me over the phone. What? Bob was speechless at my irrefutable logic. However, the next moment I heard a weaker voice on the other end of the phone say, "Hey. Please, forgive me. Spare me the alimony. And the mortgage too. Amy is pregnant. I can't imagine being in debt with a child on the way. I've lost my job and don't know what to do. Please, overlook this, please." Bob's pathetic apology only made me sigh. I thought about how foolish I was to have put up with him for 2 years. Forgive? There's nothing to forgive. I want nothing to do with you ever again. The alimony is a severance payment. This is all your fault, isn't it? Why should I have to endure any more? I have nothing more to say to you. Run away and hide in some foreign land for all I care. Goodbye. Ignoring Bob's plea to wait, I hung up the phone. I should be thanked for even answering his call in the middle of the night. Exhausted, I went back to bed. I doubted I would ever talk to Bob again. I felt liberated thinking about a life without him. When I thought of that, my heart sank. Later, when Bob returned from an overseas trip, my lawyer requested compensation. Bob had spent a fortune on his mistress and was nearly penniless. The mistress, a president's daughter, had been disowned after this incident. Without her family's money to fall back on, Bob and she had no choice but to take on debt. He said he was trying to find a new job, but now that the news of this incident has become known, his job hunting is having a difficult time. Bob, once boasting about being an elite banker, was often slacking off at work, which drastically dropped his sales performance. The company found a perfect reason to fire him. Bob and his mistress were barely getting by with part-time jobs. With the mistress pregnant, she wouldn't be able to work much longer. I doubted Bob could support a 3-person household alone. I felt they deserved to experience hardship. Meanwhile, my business was thriving, and I decided further expanded it. I secured a larger loan from the same bank Bob worked at. My salary increased, and I started planning to buy my own house. For fulfilling a lifelong dream. I'm looking forward from now. Though I lost a husband, I had supportive colleagues and business partners. In a fortunate environment, I was motivated to continue working hard.